In Palestine, health authorities warn of difficulties to bury decomposing bodies due to ongoing Israeli attacks against Gaza. In the Netherlands, the International Court of Justice began the hearing requested by Guyana to debate the suspension or not of Venezuela's consultative referendum on the Esequibo. The Venezuelan vice president described Guyana's request as unprecedented and lacking any legal basis. And in Mexico, members of the LGBTQ+ community marched for the death of Magistrate Jesus Ociel Baena. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Palestinian health authorities warn of difficulties to bury decomposing bodies due to Israeli attacks on Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Health Ministry warned that medical personnel in Gaza are facing difficulties in moving within the Al-Shifa hospital due to Israeli drones targeting any movement. Also, authorities warned that some 100 deceased have not been able to be buried due to the threat to the life of medical personnel. This adds a new problem to the public health system in Gaza, affected after the beginning of the Israeli operation on October 7th. The hospitals warned that the Israeli occupation condemns patients to death due to the lack of medical supplies, fuel, and electricity. The Ministry of Health of the Palestinian Authorities reported on Tuesday that at least 7 Palestinians were killed during an Israeli military raid into the Tulkarm refugee camp in the northern of the occupied West Bank. In this sense, the Ministry of Health confirmed over 183 Palestinians from the West Bank killed by the Israeli military occupation forces. On the other hand, the human rights group Yesh Din also reported over 172 incidents of violence and harassment by Israeli settlers against Palestinians in at least 84 Palestinian cities and communities. On Monday, Israeli forces attacked a convoy of journalists passing through southern Lebanon. Local media in Lebanon reported that the Israeli occupation army bombed a convoy of vehicles traveling in the city of Yarun. The attack left several vehicles burned, and Al Jazeera News Network reported that one of its photographers, Issam Mawasi, was injured in the attack. In the meantime, the Palestinian authorities denounced that media workers have been permanently targeted by the Israeli occupation forces, with a total of 51 journalists killed by Israel in the Gaza Strip. The director of Al-Mayadeen indicated that the decision to silence the media was a political decision taken by Israel to confront the influence of the news platform in Palestine and the Middle East.
The decision to ban Al-Mayadeen was not a decision taken in a natural way. It was not through a statement by the Ministry of Telecommunications or through the media or anything like that. Imagine that the cabinet, which represents the highest authority to take political, security and military decisions, meets urgently for decisions related to national security. All this great team met, and one of the points of discussion was the Al-Mayadeen chain. Of course, it was a heavy and big file, almost approved. It was like the campaigns of incitement, distortion, defamation and threats, the same way our colleague Hannah was threatened and intimidated. In addition to these direct threats against us, this is the first time I say this, we have received threatening messages related to the urgent need to silence the voice of Al-Mayadeen, which was present from the first moments of the Israeli aggression to Gaza. Which was firm in facing the occupation. So this Israeli decision was not a media decision. It was a political and security decision par excellence. They are confronting Al-Mayadeen not only as a telecommunication channel, it has become an influential and strong channel in the heart of the Palestinian people. They are aware and know very well that the numbers show the level of credibility and influence inside occupied Palestine, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and also within the Palestinian diaspora.
In this regard, Ghassan Ben Jedu denounced that Israel had started a war against free voices that tried to show the brutality of the genocide perpetrated by Tel Aviv against the Palestinian people.
They are hysterical and disturbed, facing the media in general, and everyone who talks about what is happening, about the crimes, either in Gaza or the West Bank, or within the borders of 1948. But especially, Al-Mayadeen was bothering them, so they had to take the decision to shut us up. But the strangest thing is that it is not only a decision of the Palestinian entity. What it means is that Israel will enter with its security forces into that area, to the West Bank. It will also close our offices and confiscate our cameras and equipment. It is a war. We consider it a war decision. We will continue to do our work without rest, without delay, and without backing down, because we consider that now the situation does not require, at this time, to file lawsuits and contact international organizations. We will do it to safeguard our rights and to certify the crimes committed by the invader. But at the same time, this is not a priority now. We will go to a battle of public opinion based on the fact that Al-Mayadeen, with what it represents, not only as a channel, but as a project and a vision, represent this big and fighting media community, of which TeleSUR, by the way, is a big part. That is what we want to say, that Israel wants to persecute the free voices, the free words, wherever they are. And that is why we're confronting Israel in the occupied lands and wherever it is.
Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani said on Monday that Iran is committed to facilitating a ceasefire in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Kanani also welcomed the unanimous resolution passed at the Joint Arab Islamic Extraordinary Summit held in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia on Saturday that condemned Israel's attacks on Palestinian territories, including the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, reiterated support for the Palestinians' rights to freedom and independence in all occupied territories, and warned that Israel's retaliatory military operations against the Gaza Strip would have disastrous consequences. Participating countries at the summit also called on the United Nations Security Council to make a decisive and binding decision, and also decided to launch a specialized Arab and Islamic financial network to provide financial contribution and economic and humanitarian support to the Palestinian government. In the Philippines, more than 100 pro-Palestinian demonstrators were repressed by police officers in front of the U.S. Embassy in Manila. On Tuesday, hundreds of pro-Palestinian activists took to the streets carrying placards and banners in support of the Palestinian people. Police used riot shields to try to stop the march heading towards the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines, but were outnumbered by the nearly 200 protesters. As of last Friday, more than 11,000 Palestinians, two-thirds of them women and children, had been killed, and like other countries, the Philippines are calling for an end to this genocide. On Monday, President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva received a plane with 32 Brazilians and their relatives rescued from the Gaza Strip. The group, made up of 22 Brazilians, 7 Palestinians residing in Brazil, and 3 relatives, managed to leave Gaza after several frustrated attempts since the beginning of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mauro Vieira, indicated in a press conference in Brasilia that 2 people from the group who were on the original list of 34 names for personal reasons renounced their repatriation and decided to remain in Gaza. New arrivals recounted in person their experiences under Israeli siege.
What's happening there is a massacre. It's very difficult for you to understand what we are going through there. Bombardments dropped everywhere. My daughters were shocked, very sad. The first 2 weeks, we lied to them by saying bombs were fireworks from birthday parties, but we couldn't lie to them for much longer.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. This Tuesday, the International Court of Justice began the hearing requested by Guyana to debate the suspension or not of Venezuela's consultative referendum on the sovereignty of the Esequibo territory. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez emphasized that her attendance at the court is to defeat the pretensions of Guyana's judicial colonialism by using this court to stop the unstoppable. Rodriguez added that Guyana intends to manipulate the court to stop the referendum, which is sovereign, failing to report their actions with the Southern Command and their military exercises. The Vice President said Guyana's request for provisional measures to stop the consultative referendum has no legal basis. Venezuela's delegation will appear on Wednesday to defend the holding of the consultative referendum on the Esequibo.
Guyana nunca deja de asombrarnos.
Guyana never stops to amaze us. We are really very astonished because not only are they heirs of a territory that the United Kingdom stole from Venezuela, but also they inherited the lineage of imperialist and colonialist arrogance. They have asked the court in a kind of implementation of judicial colonialism. They want to turn the court into the instrument that will stop the consultative referendum of December 3rd. They have asked the court that the Venezuelan people should not vote, which is absolutely unprecedented, extraordinary, astonishing, barbaric. To us to come here to interfere in the internal affairs of Venezuela, of its internal constitutional order. Well, atrocities like that we had to listen to, but we have also heard how they have lied, how they have manipulated those beautiful rallies that our national Bolivarian armed force is doing together with the people on the streets, in the neighborhoods, in the towns, in the cities. For them it is a threat when our national Bolivarian armed force, constitution in hand, is calling on our people to participate in the consultative referendum. What Guyanese government doesn't say, because we are aware of their fake victimized role, of those having plundered and robbed the territory of Venezuela, and now they are robbing the maritime territory, which is pending to be delimited. What they didn't say or mention are the joint military exercises between the U.S. Southern Command and the Guyanese military forces. They didn't say anything about it, they didn't mention it, and how their bombastic statements, along with the Southern Command and the Pentagon, threaten and attack Venezuela. Nothing new, we already knew everything. They insist on stopping the consultative referendum on December 3rd. Tomorrow, Venezuela will let crystal clear the stance of our people, of our nation. On December 3rd, all Venezuelans will cast their votes because it is an essential matter to defend our rights on the Guyana Esequibo.
Members of the LGBTQ+ community marched in Mexico City for the death of Magistrate Jesus Ociel Baena, who appeared lifeless this Monday in Aguascalientes. Initially, protesters gathered at the capital to remember the renowned non-binary gender jurist. Then at the Plaza Nueva Tlaxcala in Saltillo, family members held a vigil in his name and to demand the clarification of the case. Similarly, in the main square of Aguascalientes, where Ociel Baena was in office, members of the LGBTQ+ community, among other members of civil society, held a rally to remember him and denounce the recent death threats suffered by the magistrate. In Panama, organizations of the National Alliance for the Rights of the Organized People maintain protests against mining concessions for the 24th consecutive day. According to the member associations, the street blockades will continue until Law 406, which gave life to the contract between the state and Minera Panama, a subsidiary of Canadian First Quantum Minerals, is revoked. In this sense, it is expected that on Wednesday 15th, Thursday 16th, and Monday, November 20th, rallies and blockades will be carried out against the appeal hearing presented by the defense of the alleged murder of two people who were protesting against the mining concessions in the district of Chame on November 7th. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Before a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Spanish Supreme Court called for the respect of the separation of powers in response to the use of the concept of lawfare within the pact between Pedro Sánchez and Junts per Catalunya. The Spanish Judiciary called that the rule of law demands absolute respect for the division of powers and rejected the supervision or oversight of the jurisdictional functions by other branches of the state. The judiciary statement comes after the amnesty bill agreed upon between the Catalan party and Sánchez considered to set up a commission to establish the release of imprisoned Catalan pro-independence politicians, taking into account situations derived from the lawfare or judicialization of politics. The Spanish Supreme Court finally reiterated that its ruling is in accordance with the law and ensures equality in its implementation. The investiture vote for Pedro Sánchez's new term as head of government in Spain has already its date, the 15th and 16th of November. At the same time, the People's Party has called for new elections during demonstrations jointly organized with the far right. Our correspondent in Spain, Sergio Rodrigo, has the story.
Again on its supporters in more than 50 cities throughout Spain, attacking the new government to which it has urged to submit once again to the people's sovereignty.
We will continue. We will not give up. We will not shut up until we can speak in an election, where we can all have our say again, and where we can all again vote, because what is being done is the opposite to what we have voted for. Why are we afraid of elections? Why are they afraid of the polls?
Hundreds of thousands of people all over Spain have rallied against the deal between the Socialist Party and the Catalan nationalists, which considers the approval of an amnesty law.
If he wants to pacify Catalonia, he cannot do it at the expense of dividing Spain. You are bringing about a confrontation of the society, which I find absolutely unacceptable, worrying and alarming.
Experts affirm that the protests are the reaction to the right-wing narrative of selling a coup after the socialist pact with independence and nationalist forces in Spain.
In view of the formation of the new government, which would be headed again by Pedro Sánchez from the Socialist Party, with the support of left-wing groups, Catalan pro-independence groups and Basque nationalists, the right wing in Spain has reacted in a vicious way, trying to frame these pacts as a sort of a coup d'etat.
While protests are being called against the amnesty law, all kinds of ultra-right groups are taking over the demonstrations on the streets.
These calls are being attended by all sorts of right-wing and far-right-wing groups that have ever existed in Spain, from people sympathetic to these parties to neo-Nazis or openly pro-Franco groups.
Spain is going through one of the most stormy government formation in recent decades, which will finally lead to a social democratic government in coalition with the left.
Sergio Rodrigo, Lucía Muñoz, TeleSUR, Andalucía, España.
Kenya's government announced an unexpected public holiday on Monday for a nationwide tree planting day. It was part of the African nation's ambitious plan to plant 15 billion trees by 2032. Kenya's current forest cover currently stands at about 7%, but the government has set aside more than $80 million this financial year, as it bids to increase tree cover to more than 10%. Michael Kisangi, CEO of Soul of Africa Tours and Travel, said trees were a vital part of the country's wildlife. Kenya continues to suffer from an illegal logging and trade in many of its forests that are vital to the country's water catchment areas. Climate change is worsening droughts in the Horn of Africa, including Kenya, where rains have failed for 5 seasons in a row. Kenya's president has made the National Landscape and Ecosystem Restoration Program a priority since assuming the presidency in September 2022.
It's a great opportunity for everyone, even Kenyans, to get an opportunity to plant trees, because we got to take care of our environment, and because especially doing it here in the park is the most critical place to be, because it's where we wildlife, and and trees are part of the world, and so we're taking care of the environment, and for sure it will give it back to us.
Kenyan President William Ruto held talks in Nairobi on Monday with Sudanese General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, head of the Transitional Sovereignty Council of Sudan. The two leaders held bilateral talks on the recent security situation in Sudan and the region. They underscored the urgent need to find a solution to the conflict in Sudan, to work towards a cessation of hostilities, and to convene an urgent Intergovernmental Authority on Development in Eastern Africa summit to set conditions for a broader peace process. Almost 7 months of war between Sudan's military and a powerful paramilitary group have left a wave of destruction. Over half the population is in need of humanitarian aid, and people fear a repeat of the deadly ethnic conflict in Darfur 20 years ago. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.